Alright guys, welcome to RC Mojo. This week we'll be finishing up the cab and the bed on the WPL truck. All the cab bits are now bright yellow, the paint has dried so we can do the final assembly and get it ready to drop onto the chassis. First we'll pop in the door cards, which have 4 holes that line up with posts on the inside of the doors. It's just a case of pressing them in place, no glue required. You do end up with 4 body coloured spots in the corners, but you could always paint them with some black paint to cover them up. Next we've got the dashboard and bonnet, and watch out when painting the dash as it's quite flexible and regular plastic primer and car paint really struggles to stay stuck. A flexible paint would work a lot better. Before the dash goes in, we need to install the bonnet by clipping the hinges into the slots in the cab. Now they don't drop in all that easily, but don't force anything. When they're in just the right spot, they just click in. Next the dash goes in, which also clamps the bonnet hinges in place. The dash just offers up and gets 2 of the washer head self-tappers. The usual advice applies. It's a small screw going into fairly soft plastic, so be very careful about over-tightening. Once the screw's seated, stop. Now the dash is on, the bonnet opens and closes quite nicely. I'm hoping once it's all lined up with the bits on the chassis, we're going to be able to fit a 2S LiPo under the bonnet somewhere. There's a few small bits that we need to fit to the cab. First we've got the door handles. They have 2 posts on the back and just get pressed into the holes in the doors. But if you paint the cab and they're a bit tight, you might need to clear the paint from the holes as they're going to be quite tight. A bit further forward we have the side mirrors. Now they have clips on the end that are a very tight fit, but if you work them back and forth a little bit, they do pop right in. Before the windows go in, we need to fit the roof. The 4 posts that attach it are a very tight fit again, so we need to be able to get a good angle on it so we can press straight down. Again, no glue, and once these parts go together, you're never going to get them apart again without using lots of leverage. We have 4 windows to install, and all of them have clips moulded in so they lock in place. They just offer up and press in. With the black surround pre-painted, you get a rather nice crisp finish every time. The 2 side windows at the back need a little bit of extra care as they're not going to be as flexible as the big windows, but as long as you work them in gradually, they'll go in without any real trouble. Next we've got some more scale bits to add. On the wing there's an antenna that just presses in. Unfortunately there's no clip on this one, so it's going to come out rather easily. Now you could try gluing it, but I reckon it would still get pulled out the first time you roll, then you'd be left with the remains of the glue on the paintwork. I'm just going to leave it pressed in and not worry too much when we inevitably lose it. Under the windscreen we have the windscreen wipers, which just press into a couple of holes. Now these are better protected, so some glue might be a good idea. A spot of poly cement is all you'd need to add just a little bit of extra security. Now the front of the cab is still looking a little bit under-detailed. It's amazing the difference fitting the grille is going to make. Obviously this kit is not licensed by Toyota, so the badge in the middle is a WPL special. It's quite neatly done, and I reckon it might just be possible to make a Toyota badge that will fit in its place. We've also got a pair of nice headlight lenses that get sandwiched between the grille and the backing part. The only thing is, with the black plastic the headlight bowls do look a bit dark through the lenses. It's an easy fix though, we just need to give them a couple of coats of silver paint before we clip everything together. And while I was at it, I also painted the inside of the indicator pods so they look a bit less yellow. When we fit the lenses, we need to get them the right way up. The lenses have a slot on one side that line up with a little nub on the surround. If you don't get them lined up, the parts won't clip together properly and they won't lie flat on the cab. With the lenses in, we can fit the surround and badge, then clip the assembly into the front of the cab. Once all the clips are fully in, everything is nicely clamped in place. The indicator pod's next, and all we do is press on the lenses with the clear bits towards the tops. The parts are keyed so they won't fit properly upside down. Then they should just press into the square holes in the wings. But because we painted it, there's just not quite enough space to get them in. A few quick passes with a small file to clear the paint off the post is all we need to do. Just remember to do a little bit at a time, as it's easy to remove a bit more, but not quite so easy to add it back. Having said that, you can always just use a bit more glue. With the grille and the 2 pods on the cab, it's really starting to look the part. Scaled up a bit to 1/10, I'd bet these things would sell like hotcakes as a cab-only kit. To finish the cab, we just need to install the interior. All we do is install the gear knob, which is just a press fit, clip in the 2 seats, which I've painted in grey primer so they stand out a bit. Everything was looking a bit black before. The assembly then just inserts through the bottom of the cab. It needs a little pushing and pulling to get it in position, and there's a tongue at the back that needs to be inserted into a slot. Then there's just 2 more of the washer head self-tappers to install, a bit more massaging to get it all to sit nicely. The extra thickness of the paint means it doesn't quite like to slot together as easily as it should, but after a bit of fiddling, it's all together and I think it looks rather good. Before we have a good look though, we need this little lot to build up the bed. First job I think might as well be popping the tyre onto the wheel. We don't need any wheel weights here as it's just a spare, and we'll probably get away without gluing it. There's a vague chance it might get hung up and pulled off, but I think it will probably be okay. Next, the bumper clips onto the back of the bed base, and unfortunately there's no holes or lenses for the rear lights. They do provide some stickers, but that's really not quite the same. I think we'll end up drilling some holes for 3mm LEDs. That will be right at the end of the build though, once we've got a good idea about how much space we have around the chassis parts. One of the neat bits on this body set is the planks for the bed are actually made of real wood. It's cheap and nasty wood, but it's a million times better than a plastic moulding. To fit them, we just need a washer head self-tapper at each end screwed into the holes in the base. Fit 10 of them and you've got a very nice looking load area. Next there's the side rails, which simply offer up to the bed and get attached with 2 more washer head self-tappers per side. They largely self-locate and they don't really want to fit backwards, so you can't get them wrong. The fenders pop over some posts on the bottom of the bed and get yet more washer head self-tappers. The headache rack, and thanks for the guy that replied in the last video reminding me what the thing was called, just clips into place. Everything is quite flexible, so you can bend things a bit to get the clips in. Now it might have been nice if it was screwed into place, but I'm guessing the clips are going to be more than good enough. The spare wheel offers up to the long post near the back of the bed, and this time, rather than a washer head self-tapper, we get to use one of the non-washer head self-tappers to attach it. Amazing stuff. And that's the bed done. You've got to remember that these are primarily designed to put together in 30 seconds flat on a factory line, so there's no complex procedures and there's the minimum amount of screws. It's as quick and easy as it's possible to get. It's definitely not as solid as a Tamiya body might be, but it's still an impressive bit of engineering. The last job on the body then is to attach the 2 halves. The posts at the front of the bed locate under 2 tabs on the cab, and we install 2 more washer head self-tappers. Nip them up and that's the body ready to mount to the chassis, once we've built it anyway. So that's it for today's build. All that's left to do is to mention the usual bits and bobs. We're live streaming irregularly now over at twitch.tv/RCMojoTV. Sometime in the next few streams I'll have a camera pointing at the white box, so you can see what's being filmed as it's being filmed and ask questions and generally just hang out. Not to mention in previous streams all that soldering and busy work that we've been doing. There's also the Discord server for live chatting, picture sharing and general RC nonsense. It's free and there's a link in the description to join up. So that's it for this week then. As always, thanks for watching. Like if you liked, subscribe if you haven't, and leave a message if there's something on your mind. Bye guys!